Let's go ahead and talk about the main topic for today, which is living a life of abundance. I want to premise this, and the reason why I'm giving this premise, or preface, excuse me, is simply because this mindset is not relegated exclusively to romantic relationships. In other words, the ability and capability to walk away from something that isn't working for you should not be relegated to just romantic relationships. And I say that because time and time again, we find ourselves in one mindset that works in regards to, okay, I'm gung-ho about this, I'm willing to do this, willing to do that, I'm willing to leave it if it's not working. And then when we apply that mindset to a different topic or to a different context, we all of a sudden lose the gusto or the gumption in order to pull these things off. Anyway, allow me to back up what I'm saying and give a little more context to what I mean and be a little more thorough with this. So, living a life of abundance. Let's get one thing out the way primarily. All relationships require inherently some level of risk. All relationships inherently have some level of risk, right? And I think it's important to note that because in today's day and age, we find ourselves in situations where we have to talk things out, where we have to compromise, where we have to agree to disagree. However, for some reason, or whatever the case may be, this society now is under the assumption that every single relationship should just go one person's way. That is not the case. All relationships, whether they be romantic, business, familial, friend, or otherwise, include some level of risk. They all do. Obviously, the levels of risk vary between the types of relationships, but more likely than not, there will be some sort or some level of compromise one would have to put up with or offer in order to make that relationship work. You'll never find a relationship to where you can do everything and this person can't do anything. You know what I mean? Like, you can't expect to be allowed to get away with anything and everything that you want. Meanwhile, this person is supposed to just wait hand and foot on you. That's not a relationship. That's more so like slavery to some regard. So you can't avoid risk, but you can protect yourself with boundaries. Now, again, the two catalysts for any healthy relationship, I believe, are and not so much compromise like you have to give up your life per se or your life's mission, but there has to be some level of compromise within the relationship. And then in addition to that, there has to be an appreciation of boundaries from both parties. Boundaries are super important. If you don't have boundaries in your own life, you will find yourself time and time again compromising on the very values that make you who you are. That's the best way I could say it in the most plain English. And the reason why you need boundaries, because if you're willing to compromise on your boundaries, or if you do compromise on your boundaries and you forego your values, you not only damage your character and your reputation, but on the other hand, this person no longer respects you. You need to have the self-respect to be willing to walk away from situations that just no longer work for you. And again, I'm not saying they have to work for you in a sense that you can do everything this person cannot. But what I'm saying is, once that relationship, and again, regardless of what kind of relationship type it is, but once that relationship loses its boundaries or lines have been broken and the respect has been lost, that relationship is done. There's really no point in continuing it. So you can't avoid risk, but you can protect yourself with boundaries, just like we said. Now, what happens when the boundaries have been crossed, lines have been crossed, promises have been broken, etc., etc.? The calamity of relationships is falling upon us. What happens then? Walking away then becomes your superpower. Now, here's what I don't want. I don't want you to go out of your way and then say, oh, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm walking away. Because then you try to make it as like a tool for an ultimatum, which more than likely you're going to get burned in the end. So walking away is a superpower. Now, just going over some of the notes that I have here, obviously one should talk about any grievances they may have in their relationships. Being willing to walk away shouldn't be abused or placed over someone's head either. Always talk through challenges that need to be talked through. Obviously, there are some things that can be talked about and worked on from a, relationship perspective. Again, whether that be business, familial, family, romantic, whatever the case may be, you will run into some issues where you two need to talk about things. But where the defining moment lies is when within those conversations, the person who did the thing isn't willing to apologize, or if they just did something absolutely egregious, then that is grounds for you to walk away. Which is important. You should be willing to walk away in these cases simply because, again, if you don't walk away from the situations that have violated you, that have mistreated you, or the people that have done that, then not only are you taking damage to your character and your reputation, but you can expect to experience more of the same. It's a funny thing because people will always try to test you, right? And I know in romantic relationships, from the guy's side, we talk about being tested all the time, which my motto is, if I have to get tested, I'm going to automatically fail because I don't live a life to create relationships that are here to test me. Life tests me enough. I don't need to be continuously tested in my relationships, and I sure will not be tested in a romantic relationship. No, absolutely not. If you test me, I'm going to automatically fail, and I don't care. But anyway, a lot of times men get put in these positions where their woman wants to test their loyalty or test their love for them. And although I'm the one to argue against going through tests and trying to pass them, what I will say here is, if it's something that's conversation based and you guys can hash out a coherent agreement or disagreement, or just agree to disagree on some things and it's amicable and peaceful, then yeah, talk those things out. But if you're especially for my guys here, if you're constantly being harassed and going through test after test after test, my friend, it is time for you to walk away. Because obviously the loyalty is fading, the trust is definitely no longer there, and the relationship, the respect, is also fading as well. So in your situation, walking away may be the best option simply because there's nothing to talk through anymore. The trust is no longer there. She's constantly testing you day in, day out. And a relationship is it's not for that. That's not what a relationship is for. It's not for you to test me because your anxiety of being abandoned constantly flares up, which is another topic of conversation that we'll talk in another podcast. But being attached to someone who's scared to lose you definitely puts you in the position of where you have to constantly be tested day in, day out. In fact, let's see if I could find it. It says, so my boyfriend is mad at me because I went through his phone while he was asleep. By the way, I didn't find anything. But instead of arguing with me, he buys Chipotle, snacks, and card that says, I'm sorry for not making you feel safe and secure, but there's nobody else but you. Listen, and this is what I wrote in response. Your insecurity is not your boyfriend's problem. I feel sorry for this guy considering his perception is warped. And then I asked the fellows of the community, what would you do if you caught your girl going through your phone? Now that inherently is a shit test. And I'm just going to let you know right now, if your woman is going through your phone and you are a loyal guy, you're not doing anything, you're not feeding her insecure ego, right? When you go out, you let her know where you're going to be. You come back home at a respectful time. I'm not saying she's your mom, but these are just elements of respect that keep a relationship healthy. If she can't respect those things and trust you enough that you won't put her health at risk, you won't put her heart at risk, then you need to leave her. Because there's no point in continuing that relationship. You're going to live the rest of your life, if you decide to stay with this person, you're going to live the rest of your life constantly being tested and constantly having to reassure them. That is not the way to live. Now, just imagine the inverse. Can you imagine if a guy was doing that to his woman? He would be called abusive, controlling, insecure. 9 times or 10 times out of 10, that man would be called insecure. The irony is that I had a bunch of women in the comment section trying to defend her actions. Make it make sense. If the roles were reversed, he would be called insecure, X, Y, and Z, and everything else. But in this case, going back to what I was saying, this is where walking away becomes your superpower. And now you might be thinking to yourself, well, what does walking away have to do with living a life of abundance? And I'll go ahead and tie everything here. Abundance mindset, or the abundance mindset, is a mindset that will free you from the feelings of codependency. Because oftentimes, especially us as men, I know I was part of this congregation or part of this community at the time. When I was in a relationship, I was super codependent. Like, I thought that chick was the one. Like, I was like, damn, I can't lose her. Like, what will my life be like? What will it be like? Like, if I lose this chick, what's gonna happen to me? You know what happened? My fucking life got better. You have to be willing to understand that, yes, during the interim, walking away from this person is definitely going to suck. But you have to be okay with walking away from them, simply because that won't be the first and last girlfriend or wife, whatever the case may be. Side note, don't get married. But that won't be the first girlfriend or the first and last girlfriend that you'll have. You'll always run into women. I know there are a couple of ladies that are listening to this like, oh, well, what about us? Well, I'm talking to my guys right now. But you'll run into another woman. You'll run into another woman that has similar interests like you. And in fact, when you run into that next woman, you might be in such a better position in your life that you might be wondering why you even thought to be with the person prior. It's all perspective. It's all relative in one way or another. An abundance mindset is a mindset that will free you from the feelings of codependency. The less codependent you are, the better your odds will be when it comes to having healthy relationships, whether it be with the opposite sex, business, familial, friends, whatever the case may be. Because you already know yourself. You know yourself well enough to know that you can attract other people into your life. And then in addition to that, you have respect for yourself and you have boundaries implemented that if someone were to do something to you, walking away would not be an issue. And now for the final part of this, it is, an abundance mindset does not mean you are tossing people to the side as though they were commodities. It simply means that you are fully aware that if one relationship fails, another can take its place. And that's truthfully the essence of an abundance mindset. It's, okay, I lost one opportunity, there will be a next one. Me and my girl broke up, there will be another one. I lost out on a bag, trust me, I'll get another bag. You know, keeping your eyes open and being aware and cognizant of opportunities, regardless of how they manifest themselves, is very important, especially in today's society and especially for men. Guys, no one out there is going to give us the life that we want. There's no one we can go to and beg for the life that we want. We really have to work on cultivating it, growing it, and building it ourselves. And with that said, oftentimes along this journey, you will attach yourself to people who won't be able to make it to the end of that journey. And you have to be willing to walk away from them and be okay with that. Because again, at the end of the day, if you are codependent, you will make mistakes in your life. I'll give you the best example in closing. The best example in closing is my own music career. You know, I got to a point in my music career where I was starting to make some waves, starting to make some noise. People knew of my music. Excuse me, I'm caught up on one of these fucking hooks. Sorry. I was starting to make waves, starting to make moves in the music industry. I was meeting people, and it got to a point where I opened up for Meth and Redman. Now, I opened up for Meth and Redman, and it was such a great experience, an amazing time. I brought all my friends, I brought my then girlfriend with me at the time, and I got so caught up in trying to make them happy. Like, I was going through a bunch of shit that week, so I was really just trying to make sure my set was right. I was trying to make sure I could pull this off, things of that nature. And there was just so much stress going on, at least within me, that when I finally performed and I finished the performance, I had the opportunity to go back and meet Method Man and everyone else that's a part of the group. But I didn't take the opportunity because the people I were with wanted to go home. Me and my girl were arguing at that time. So at that point, I was like, all right, well, you know what? Let's go home and try and fix things. And long story short, I ended up missing out on the opportunity to go on tour with them. Now, could you imagine if I had went on tour opening for Meth and Redman, opening for Wu-Tang Clan? Could you know, or do you know, what would have happened to my career? Who knows what could have happened? Who the fuck knows? I don't have a lot of regrets in life, that is that's one of them. Not gonna lie, that is definitely one of my regrets in life. But hey, everything happens for a reason, more or less. So I say all that to say, man, your dreams are fucking important. Your dreams and everything you want to be is very, very important. And if you aren't willing to walk away from the things that are holding you down, man, you'll never become what you're supposed to become. So although these things don't seem like they're all, they all coincide with one another, but living a life of abundance, having boundaries, and being willing to walk away from situations that don't help you is important, especially if you plan on making waves in this life. I don't know, that's just my opinion on it. You've only got one life, make the best of it. Don't drag on dead weight. If they're not holding you down, they're slowing you down, and you need to let them go.